Welcome to Curator's Chronicles. I'm your curator, Christian Gurling, and in this special episode, we invite you to journey back to a pivotal moment in history, the Battle of the Bulge, a defining chapter of World War II marked by unparalleled bravery and sacrifice. Today, we bring you the stirring account, as heard in his own words, of Private First Class Bill Bradley, a resilient soldier hailing from the town of Crescent, Pennsylvania. Serving among the ranks of the esteemed 99th Infantry Division, known as Battle Babies, Bill's narrative offers a compelling glimpse into the tumultuous landscape of war. Recorded in 1993, his story serves as a poignant testament to the valor and resilience of those who faced unimaginable odds on the battlefield. Join us as we pay homage to Bill's courage and share his remarkable journey with our audience.
My name is William F. Bradley, Army serial number 13146261. I'm going to give a brief summary. Of course, my nickname is Bill. No one calls me William. I was born in South Fork, Pennsylvania. July 5th, 1922, and a few years after that, my family moved to Crescent, Pennsylvania, which is about 12 miles away, and there I was raised up until I finished business school and went to work for Middletown Air Depot, and also from there to Glen Elm Martin's, working on B-26s. I attended grade school, Catholic grade school in Crescent, Pennsylvania. Then went to Crescent High School, graduated from there, and then took a 2-year high-speed course in business administration in Altoona, Pennsylvania. At that point, my brother had graduated from high school, and we started looking for a job, of course, get in the car, an old car I had bought, and started. My dad had been transferred up to Kingston, right across the river from Wilkes-Barre, as a senior mine inspector working for the federal government. So we started out of there and kept working town after town looking for work. Finally, we get Middletown Air Depot, and they hired both of us. They hired me in the clerical end, since I'd been to business school, and my brother was put in the machine shop training end. After about 6 months there, I just found out there was about twice as much money down at Glen Elm Martin's in Baltimore working on B-26s, and so I gave my 2 weeks notice at Middletown Air Depot, and from there went to Baltimore and started to work for Glen Elm Martin, which was much more lucrative at the time, of course. I recently attended by the way, today's date is 10/27/93. I recently attended a anniversary reunion of the ASTP Unit 4814 at Huntsville, Texas. And there I met a gentleman by the name of Jim Bishop, who requested that I put some of my experiences on tape and send it to him. And he is going, of course, as I said, writing a book. And of course, I would like to purchase one of those books when he's finished. Not that I'm going to be in it, but at least it'll give me a summary of ASTP and what happened to those men in the 99th Infantry, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At this reunion, I met some people I hadn't seen for 50 years, and I really enjoyed it. And of course, in the future, I'm on the mailing list of the 99th Infantry and the ASTP to be notified of future reunions. Briefly, my Army career lasted from December of 42 to November of 45, so it wasn't quite 3 years. And fortunately, when I come back from Europe, I didn't have to go to Japan, so I had enough points at the time. I was able to get out reasonably early. My Army career, in December, I enlisted in the WTS program, which is War Training Service. And what they did, I believe that they were training us for Ferry Command pilots, and I took my basic flying and ground school at Lynchburg College, Virginia. There, I passed that successfully with approximately 45 hours solo time, in the small planes, and then they moved me up to I was supposed to go to the next unit, which is the next larger plane. And when I had taken my depth perception test with this doctor, I had basically held onto the strings, I guess, and when he told me to bring them back in position, I just put them back where they were in the first place, and of course I had no trouble passing. But at this point, they put me on a machine which showed definitely I had absolutely no depth perception whatsoever, and of course that took care of my Air Force and my flying. The doctor told me I'd kill myself as soon as I got into any ships that landed or planes that landed fairly hot. So then they sent me to Greensboro, North Carolina for basic training, and there I was classified to go to flight engineering school. So anyway, at this point, I'm going to stop just for a second, rewind, and see if this is coming through. Okay, everything seems to be coming through okay. And at Greensboro, I can't remember who contacted who in reference to ASTP. I don't know whether I saw it on a bulletin board or whether they contacted me or how it happened. But anyway, I ended up in ASTP. They sent me to Georgia State Teachers College, I believe for women. At least that's what Casey told me is where we were. And of course, after the testing there, of course, I went to Huntsville and joined you people in the Army Specialized Training Program. My brain's not working as good. I just had something to eat before I come back here. Anyway, there's not much sense of going into detail of ASTP. You were all there, and it was a case of study, and at the end of the period there, well, of course, they took me, at least in my group, to see a movie called Baptism of Fire, which was frontline combat by infantrymen where they were gouging people's eyes out and everything else. And I said to my friend, I think we've about had it here. It sort of looks to me like we're going to end up in the infantry or some outfit like that. And as you all know, the orders come in to go to Camp Maxey, where we were subjected to basic training, and of course also the expert infantry badge and the combat badge, etc., etc. It wasn't any picnic, but that place was awful hot. That's the main. The one thing I do remember there was that 26-mile hike, which damn near tore the bottom of my feet off. That wasn't very pleasant there. From Maxey, we had a company party the night, a day or two before we left for Boston for POE, and of course train ride up there, and then we get on one of those ships or boats, whatever they call them, and went over to England. And I think most of you guys were in and all of that also, where we were bagged out and bunked down in Quonset huts with the potbelly stoves. And I'm not going into detail there because you were all along at that time too, I'm fairly sure. And then the orders came down to get on this, I guess it was an LST, and go over to, I believe we landed Le Havre. My memory's kind of faint in that one. And then took trucks across France and up to the front lines. I don't recall just how many days that took, but I do know they were dropping men off to give directions, and I thought to myself, I wonder how in the devil those guys are going to find their way back to the units, because, it was in the middle of the night. We were driving at night in most cases, and another thing that I marveled at is how those guys could drive those trucks in the pitch black without any lights on. But to make a long story short, there was a few incidents on the way which, for instance, people shooting themselves in the foot and a few things like that. Once we started to hear the guns rumbling, why accidents started happening. But anyway, we finally made it up to prepared positions where the previous outfit had already had dug in, had their bunk space underground, and had the foxholes there, and it was really nice because I'd get awful sick of digging foxholes anyway. So we moved into a prepared position there, and with the underground sleeping, of course, as you all probably realize, because you've all probably had the same thing. We were located on the edge of a forest. Our particular company was Company C, 393rd Regiment. We're located on the edge of a very large pine forest, and then then there was an open ground in front of that, up over the top of a rise for maybe 300-400 yards, and then dropped down the other side, and there were the German, I guess it was the Siegfried Line German pillboxes. So, except for sniper fire, and we had 2 patrols we went out on, and back into the German lines there, and we lost a few men who gathered together, come out for lunch and happened to get in one spot, and a German 88 come in, lit right in the middle of them, and of course we had to haul them back at night, and then we couldn't get back into our own lines because, as you probably all know, you couldn't do much moving or that you'd get shot by your own people. So that went on, cooking in these gravel cans with gravel and sand in, dumping gasoline, cooking in that, and drinking out of cricks. And there was a creek behind us that we were enjoying the water immensely until we discovered it was a dead cow upstream 300 or 400 yards, and that sort of turned us against that. But anyway, I don't know just when we got there or the exact dates. Those dates elude me, but I think it's probably in your records when we shipped over to France and when we hit the front lines. But I do know, I think it was sometime in November. I'm not positive. Because we'd been up there, it seemed like a fairly good space of time until they hit us on December 16th. About 4 o'clock, well, I better go back a little bit there. One of the funny things that happened to me, I was bunking in with a guy by the name of Gilbert Bauer, and on the night of the 15th, the word came around that half of the guys were going back to the rear for rest. And I asked Gilbert, we made the toss, of course, and as usual, I lost. And I said, well, you might as well give me most of your ammunition and your stuff there because you're going to go back and you're not going to need it where you're going. So he gave me most of his ammo, probably 90% of it, and he went back to the rear, and I, of course, was left there by myself. Now, that was the night of the 15th, which I would say weakened our lines 50% because every other man seemed to go back that night. At least I'm fairly sure of that. I know Bauer went back, my buddy, and I'm pretty sure everybody else did the same thing, but I can't be positive on that. Anyway, about 4 o'clock in the morning of the 16th, I was awakened in my hole there by myself with the damnedest artillery barrage. The Germans were literally cutting the woods down around us. And when I went to get out of my hole, or my sleeping area, I found out in front of the hole was a very large tree. And in order to get out of there, I was very fortunate I could get out. I had to strip down to practically my skivvies and then push my clothes on through the hole and then finally crawl out and redress and then get into my foxhole. Now we could hear the Germans yelling behind us and all sides and in front of us at that time. And I just don't know how bloody you want to get in this, but I'll report some of the incidents that happened. Anyway, in the process of trying to cross this field, the Germans weren't making it through our area. There was 2 or 3 of us there. I'm trying to think of some of their names there. Let's see. There's Sergeant Bukowski was one. Gabriel and Tucker was to my left. And, no, not Gabriel and Tucker. Pratt and Haymar. Gabriel and Tucker's the guys I escaped with later on Easter Sunday. But anyway, we gave the Germans a good measure for what they were coming, and actually nobody made it through our area. Another funny thing that happened a day or 2 or 3 before the Bulge hit was that the battalion commander, I'm trying to think who and what his name was, come out and told all of us to re-camouflage our foxholes and our dugouts. And we had a very beautiful camouflage of snow. And I guess I never did take stupid orders very well because I never touched mine, and most everybody else showed up as a splotch of green on a white background. And to this day, I feel that that's what may have saved my life because they didn't try to come through where me and these other guys were. But anyway, this went on an hour or two, and the lieutenant come up the line and wanted to know if we knew what the heck was happening here. And of course, at that time, no one was suspecting a major campaign by the Germans in the winter. It just didn't seem logical, but of course, that's what it turned out to be. So we kept going as long. I kept using my ammunition and Bauer's ammunition, and we're getting lower and lower and lower. And I think it was around 10:30 in the morning. Yes, I looked over to my right, and the Germans were standing in the command post with the radio operator and the lieutenant, who they later killed. Because one of our guys, unfortunately, German medics were trying to come out in the field and pick up their people, and one of our guys opened up and killed the medic. And of course, they in turn retaliated by killing quite a few of our people after they come in. So I thought, well, I'll go up to the left there, and I picked a fellow by the name of Pratt and Haymar, who were immediately to my left, and we started moving up to the left there, and when we got there, we found they were all dead. These guys had fought to the last. They were in their foxholes dead. The Germans just ran right over top of them, and I'm talking maybe 50 feet from my location there. So in the meantime, a sniper put a bullet across Pratt's back. It took him across his shoulder blades, and of course he was on the ground screaming, and Haymar and I picked him up and carried him back to our area, and then he ordered them down to lay down their guns. It was over. And of course I think I had one or maybe two rounds left is all I had left, so there wasn't too much sense of going on too far anyway. So then the Germans moved in very cautiously, come in and put their guns on us, and the thing that I'm trying to think, to show this extreme luck that I had, that we had a tree burst coming in behind us, and I hit the ground with another guy, a friend of mine by the name of Wilker, and we were both lapping shoulders, and I stood up after the tree burst, and he said he rolled over and his face was like a sheet, and he was dead. He died right on the spot. So in the meantime, the Germans, we were trying to figure who to haul out of there, and of course we were captured then and we were going to head back towards the German line. So I tried to get a hold. Sergeant Rakowski, who was a very good friend of mine, had taken a bullet through his throat, and he was breathing through his windpipe, and it was a horrible sight. He had lost a tremendous amount of blood, and Sergeant Anita, the Germans had blown him out of his dugout and blown his leg off the hip, and he was laying there on the snow, and you could see the bone coming out of his leg right below his hip. So Rakowski was a friend of mine, and I tried to help him back. I got him. He put his arms over my shoulders, and I started taking him back. But he motioned to me he couldn't make it because I guess he had lost so much blood by then. He was so weak. So then I moved over with Haymar to get on one side of Pratt, who had taken the bullet across the shoulder blades, and we started out across the field, and this German soldier come up and stuck a gun in my backbone and motioned for me to come over and help carry this German soldier. Well, as I walked away from Pratt and Haymar, it couldn't have been over 50, 60 feet, and one of our own shells lit right on top of those two guys, and they were laying there screaming, and I couldn't do a damn thing. It was just the fact that if they'd have shot me down right in the spot too. So our own artillery got them. They got Wilker. A lot of our guys was caught by our own artillery. So anyway, me and a couple other guys, including a German soldier, helped carry this guy back, and when we got him back there, he was dead. He had a hole through his guts you could almost throw a baseball through, so there wasn't any chance to start with there. So then we were standing next to the German pillbox, and it seems to me, I don't know who, Runstead or one of the generals running the damn show was also at this same pillbox, and he was directing operations from there with his radios and what have you. So anyway, that started our long hunger strike, and I'm going to have to I had made some notes about 40 years ago when it was still pretty fresh in my mind about that boxcar ride back to Hammelburg, and I think one of your other gentlemen that spoke at our meeting down there almost had parallel parallel existence with me. He was on the same boxcars, and he ended up at Hammelburg, and I'll think of his name here in just a minute. In fact, I'll get it and call it off as soon as I get ready to start back up again. So anyway, I'm going to check my notes here a second, and I'll get back with you. That gentleman's name, I'm back again here, was Herbert Lukey. I'd met him. I was very much impressed with him down at Huntsville there. And when he was talking to us that evening, his experiences to some extent are pretty well closely parallel mine. I'm trying to find out, get my notes here, and this typing after 30, 40 years is just about gone. Anyway, here's where we were taking with German CP, okay. And we were taking another pillbox and waited there at about 7 p.m. Then we started a long and hungry trip to the prison camp, which was to take us about 10 days with one piece of bread along the way in a fifth day. Now, according to my notes, we were taken about 5 miles behind the German lines to an old barn and quartered for the night. Then we were interrogated by a German captain who didn't get very much information except name, rank, and serial number. He told our platoon leader that was one of the hardest battles that his outfit had ever been in. Then he had lost a lot of men there. And I know that he lost a lot of men because there was an awful lot of them laying out in those fields. Okay, in the meantime, of course, our artillery was zeroed in on everybody, and we had to probably watch our own artillery as much as it is. Then on my notes here, it said, I can't remember this person, he said we were then put on trucks and rode about 10 more miles and paraded through towns for the townspeople's morale. And anyway, I remember I do remember that, and I think the Germans would have very much loved to kill us if they could have done it. Then we moved to another old barn, and then moved to another house with straw on the floor for bedding. We stayed there all night, and the next morning loaded on trucks and rode about 20 miles to another town where we were stripped of all our extra clothing and anything had missed before. On this ride, we passed through a town that had been strafed a few minutes before by our planes. There were bodies of men, women, and children lying on the streets. And that's the townspeople had just taken a bad hit, and I know they would have killed us, but the drivers had orders to take us straight through. Then something I don't understand that I have here, the next day the Germans told us we had about 18 kilometers to walk to our next destination, and some of the men hadn't had medical treatment, were still walking with bullets in them. This walk turned out to be about 16 miles. We were so weak at the end of that we could hardly stand up. Okay, I don't know. We had, of course, we were freezing all the time. As you know, it was in the middle of the winter, and it was awful damn cold. And the boots they had given us, I'd burnt the fronts out of mine a long time before, trying to get them warm up next to a fire. And of course, I got them too close and burnt the front out of my boots. And that was before I was even captured. So I was having a little trouble with my feet freezing. Let's see. Okay, on this trip, they loaded us into boxcars, packing us in very tight, so it was impossible for everyone to sit down at the same time. We rode 3 days in this boxcar with no heat, except from our own bodies, and quite a few of the men by this time had dysentery, and since we had no food and cigarettes, Christmas had found us in this condition. Okay, let's see. On Christmas Day, here's something I don't understand. It's probably wrong. We came to a camp of Lindbergh, which can't be right, where we were supposed to stay. We unloaded from the boxcar in the bitter cold and snow and walked about 3 miles to this camp, which was placed in the middle of the field outside of a town. On arriving there, we were told that the English had bombed the camp the night before and we would have to go on. Then he took us back to the railroad yard, and we stood there in the cold until 10 o'clock at night. During the day, one of the men became so sick that he couldn't stand up, and some of the officers asked if the Germans, if they couldn't take them into the road station, we'd be warm. And the reply was that since this town had been bombed, we had to stay in the cold. You finally had to lay down in the cement in this overcoat. That was the best we could do. Seemed like the temperature, I have recorded here that it was about 15 below zero, but it couldn't have, I don't think it was that cold. Okay, this guy died a couple days later, and the word we got was he had diphtheria, but I don't know how true that was. That was a rumor. Okay, we loaded into boxcars again and went for 2 more days and nights until we arrived at Hammelburg. And this camp was located about 3 miles. Well, you probably know where a lot of you guys were there, so we know where it was there. When we arrived there after having a piece of bread in 9 days, they finally gave us a cup of German. I can't read this here. With some kind of soup, which I have here was slop. They allowed us 9 small lumps of coal, and of course, I think a lot of you guys, Cooney Herb was at Hammelburg, you don't have to tell you the conditions there. After a few weeks there, of course, everyone was trying to get the hell out of there where they could maybe get some of this food. They sent me to a little town called Bergson up in the mountains there, where we were cutting timber with the old German people. And they had not very much food. We were probably on 1,000 calories or less a day, and were expected to cut timber, of course, which we didn't really do too good because we didn't really have the strength to do it. But these old German people were kind people, and they had us in a barracks up on the 2nd floor of a building which had a pot-bellied stove in the center. And we would go out and cut timber in the morning. The Germans would grind their axes, and he would take a swing and you would take a swing. And I remember one time he stuck his axe in a tree, or I stuck mine in and didn't get it out in time, and I broke one of his best axes. And I thought the old man was going to cry, but he was a really nice old man, and so I can't say anything about the old German people. So I don't know just exactly how long we were there. One of the episodes that we had a guard by the name of Herman who had lived in Milwaukee, and he spoke German, and he was a fairly nice fellow too. In other words, we weren't abused. They just didn't have any food to give us, and we realized that, and they were on very low rations also. So one day they got a boxcar of potatoes in, and we got a chance to unload that, and I had this old Eisenhower torn jacket on at that time, hadn't shaved or changed clothes for quite a few months by then, and walking back to the barracks that night, some of the potatoes start dropping out under the jacket, and of course Herman turned, as he was kind enough to turn the other way till I got a chance to pick them the hell back up, and we had a feast that night. We had that pot-bellied stove, and we threw those potatoes in there and burned them black. Some of the guys had dysentery, and we felt that carbon might be fairly good for their, for the dysentery, help us get rid of it. We had another crippled man there. I can't remember his name now. There was another guard. They were probably the rejects of the SS or something. But anyway, this went on up until about a week or so before Easter, when they started moving us back suddenly, and we got part way back, and we heard the tanks roaring in. Here Patton had sent a bunch of his tanks in, we understand, to release his son-in-law at Hammelburg. And I understand after I ran into some of the boys up in Nuremberg that had been captured in that little escapade, and I guess the Germans were waiting for them, and the word I got was they were pretty well slaughtered. I don't know. But anyway, they were killing everything in a green uniform, in a German uniform that moved, and we, of course, first thought they were German tanks, so they held back up in the woods there, and then we discovered they were American tanks. I think a couple of boys decided to go with them, but I didn't have time to make that decision, unfortunately, and they shot one of our guards in the process, the tankers. Anyway, they moved us back into Bergson, back into our barracks, and about a week later, it was Easter Sunday, and they started to move us back again. And I want to tell you how good the German intelligence was. We started to move back. We got about 3 or 4 miles from town, and I had to talk to two Americans by the name of Gabriel and Tucker, who were both from Texas, and I've been kicking myself to hell ever since that I didn't get their phone numbers or something, or addresses or something. My God, I had all these ordeals with them, and I couldn't even contact them after the war. And then the rest of the guys went on, kept going. Anyway, we were in the back. We kept moving back in this column until we were in the last. There was 2 columns, and this was Easter Sunday. And as we came around the corner of this pine woods, the 3 of us went out of there like a shot out, like a rabbit out of a trap, and dodging and weaving down through. And we just had enough time before the second column came around the curve to get far enough into that woods that they didn't even get a good shot at us. I guess they did fire a few times, but nothing came near us. So we moved back towards the town of Berkson because we knew the Americans were coming in from the west there, and we wanted to get to hell, meet them if we could. So we get down in this valley next to this main road next to Berkson. Oh, wait, I skipped something there. As we hit the top of the hill on this side of Berkson, the American planes were strafing it. And evidently the Germans had, the Germans had heard that they were going to be strafed, so they got us out. They must have had a very excellent intelligence system there, and I'm trying what kind of planes they were. Okay, I can't see where I made my notes. I think they were P-47s. I'm not sure. They weren't P-38s, either P-51s or P-47s. Had come in and bombed and strafed the town we had just left about an hour before. So then we worked our way around the town of Berkson, down into the valley, and there was a German guard, and of course spoke fairly good German, so we just calmly walked up to this guard, and Gabriel told him that we had been in the town of Berkson when they started to strafe, and we got the hell out, and now we want to go back. So he said, okay, and we started down the road. When we got halfway between the 2 guards, we went up over the hill like a bunch of jackrabbits into the heavy timber again. So anyway, as I mentioned, we went up over the hill, and I think we made it, like I say, 3 days and 3 nights heading west. And in the process of that, we passed quite a few German troop concentrations and sneaked by them in the middle of the night. And we finally came to the top of this one mountain there. We were staying close to the mountaintops as we could, but we did have to cross some main roads, of course, and that's where we ran into some Germans. But of course, they didn't see us. But this last morning, we were walking across the top of this mountain with thick underbrush, and this one of the main things I remember in particular, a giant German boar stepped out of the underbrush there, and he looked at us, and we looked at him, and God, I looked around, there wasn't anywhere, no trees, no nothing, and we just stared at each other, and finally he ambled off. But I swear that thing had tusks 6-8 inches long. And then we came to the top of this mountain here, at the top of this hill, and I'm going to, by the way, I'm going to check back now and see if I'm getting this, okay? Okay, everything seems to be coming through fine. We hadn't eaten, I guess, up at that time for so many days I couldn't remember when the last time was, and we were starving, of course. My weight I found out later, it had dropped down to less than 100 pounds. And we had a vote there. We could we thought we could hear the American tanks coming in, and we had a vote among the 3 of us. I said, let's stay here and let the tanks go by, and we'll join our own troops. And no, I guess the hunger pains were too much, and these other 2 guys, Gabriel and Tucker, outvoted me, and we started out again. And down at the bottom of this hill was a dirt road, and we had to cross this dirt road. So we come up to this dirt road, and we just started to cross it, and around the curve came a German command car with, I think it was 3 German officers and a woman German soldier in that car. And God, there again, we had the guns on us, and I did think the way they lined us up against the hill that they were going to kill us, and then they decided to take us prisoner again and took us into the next town and threw us into some kind of a room with a lock on the door, and we stayed there overnight, and the next morning we started with two or three, I guess it was 3 German guards. We started the long march to Nuremberg. And I don't know how many days that took, but I know we had lice so bad that it was getting extremely miserable. We had picked up some Russian soldiers on the way up, and of course their way of beating the lice was to sleep on the manure piles. When we stopped at a barn, the Russians just calmly crawled up on top of a manure pile, and that seemed to get them a night's sleep. But we were so damn miserable. Those body lice was eating us alive. So this one day I remember one of the highlights of the march was I heard a deer come out on this field. We were walking up this road, and these 3 German soldiers opened up with a barrage of shell shots, and deer made it the whole damn way across, and nobody touched the hair of the head. And I hair on them, and I thought, my God, if these guys are so lucky, terrible shots, they're not going to win this war. I can tell you that. So anyway, we ate one day with the German SS troops in their barracks, and there was no chance. We were trying to figure some way how to get away from these guys, but as soon as we started talking, they spread out and got to, where we couldn't get at them, and they kept us under pretty good surveillance there. And finally, we made it to Nuremberg with the British and Australians and New Zealanders, and we did get deloused there, and I got my first Red Cross parcel that I had received in the whole period of time. So anyway, that was quite a thing. A little bit of chocolate there, and so I think we were there about a week, and I got friendly with a couple Australian, New Zealanders, and another American, and then we come up and started the long march back down towards Moosburg. Well, we were marching at night, and I remember one night it was a cold, miserable, and I think Herb remembers this same thing, cold, miserable, goddamn rain, that after a couple hours it just had your bones was even cold. So we said the H with this, and we tore into a next German barn we came to. We tore into the barn and get under the hay and let the hay warm us up. We finally got warm and slept there reasonably good the rest of what night was left. And the next morning we come out of the barn, and this poor German farm lady, God, I thought she was going to have a heart attack right in the spot. We were the most unkempt looking beggars you ever saw in your life. So once again, we had some of these guys had been captured in North Africa that I was with, and some of them spoke fairly good German. They asked the old lady she'd swap us some eggs for chocolate. So we ended up, I guess, with a couple dozen eggs out of the deal. But in the meantime, we're standing out in the middle of Germany, just the 5 of us, and we started on down the road the way that we had been going the night before, and this German command car come roaring in, and where the HEU guys going, and he told them, well, we're trying to catch the troops. We got separated last night, and we're trying to find where they are. He said, well, they're up in the next town in the barn. They don't even had made it to the next town. So we kept going. In the meantime, I'd picked up an infected heel and from these damn shoes of mine with no front ends, and so I knew it was just a matter of not too many days. I wasn't going to be able to navigate. So I think I made it about 2 more days, and about the 3rd night after that, we're sleeping up on the 2nd floor of this barn, and an American voice says, "Who wants to guard some German prisoners?" God, you couldn't believe the elation there. We tore down and slapped the damn Germans in the barn, and this one Australian or New Zealander said to the guy, what's the best house in town? And I guess it was a burgomaster, which means mayor, I think. And anyway, we took over his house that night. He had liquor, eggs, he had eggs, pickled eggs, he had everything in that house. But the only trouble is every time you took a drink, it'd come right back up, and every time you ate an egg, it'd come back up, and having a hell of a time keeping stuff down in my stomach. So anyway, finally I got some medical treatment on my heel, and this tank corps medic, the tank corps had released us, by the way, and the medic put some sulfur powder on my heel, and so the next day, well, I better back up a little bit here. The tankers, just for the damn plain meanness of it, going out the next morning, one tank put his track on the picket fence, the white picket fence down this German town, and he ran the fence the whole damn way through the town, smashed it into kindling wood, and then some German soldiers had barricaded themselves in an old house at the end of town there, a little bit out of town actually, and they opened up on these tanks, and the tanks just lined up there, and they turned that whole house into kindling wood, including the Germans that were in it. They told us, well, I don't know whether I should mention this or not, but they were killing anything that showed a green uniform at that time. If a German soldier stepped out in front of them, they shot him, they killed him, and so the Germans were back in the woods changing into civvies as fast as they could. So the next morning, these guys come up, my friends come up from Australia, New Zealand, and I said, boys, I can't go anywhere. My damn heel's too bad. So they went and got me a Polish driver and a wagon and come up and picked me up, and we went on into Moosburg. We had been very close to Moosburg at the time, and on the way in, when we hit Moosburg, they said, what do you guys want? We said, we're supposed to report into Moosburg. They said, hell, we don't have any food here, and we don't have anywhere for you guys to go. So we said, no, thank you, sir, and turned around and headed back up the road with the Polish driver in the wagon, and the first giant German farmhouse we saw, we took the farmhouse over, and they had chickens and pigs and cows and milk. They had a Polish lady doing the cooking there. She was cooking pigeon or squab, I guess it was, and I had charge of the chicken coop. They gave me the keys, and they said, now you got charge of the damn chickens, Bill. Take care of them. And so we were sleeping on the floor, of course, and the old lady had a 50-pound bag of sugar under the bed, and we hadn't had any sugar for a long time. But anyway, we were living it up pretty well, and finally this Polish cook, but once again, it was the old problem of keeping some food down your stomach. We were all having that trouble. Some of these guys, he told me when they were when the Italians were guarding them, that they actually had to buy their water off of those guys, and that they said their feeling was, why the hell kill the Germans? Let's not get out and kill the Italians. I don't know whether I should mention that or not, but I'm trying to tell you it as truthful as I can here. So anyway, I think we were there about 2 weeks, and this American captain come in from Moosburg, and he said, I'm taking over your billing, this and that, and this one New Zealander pulled a knife with a blade about a yard long and waved it under his throat, and he said, Captain, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to get your tail the hell out of here. This is our billet. You want one, get one yourself. Well, that same night, they get into our chicken coop, and we still don't know what happened. I had the key, and of course they evidently had a guy pick the lock or smash it. When we get up the next morning, our chicken coop every chicken was gone. There was nothing, not even a feather left. So we promptly went out and killed one of the pigs, got the pig down and sliced his throat, and then we were eating pork. We didn't have any shortage of food. We had milk and pork and squab, and about another week the word come down, reporting to Moosburg, and which we did. We got the Polish driver again, and we had kept him with us, of course. He was a prisoner too, and he took us on into Moosburg, and in the meantime, we were at this farm. The word come over the German radio that Hitler was tote, and this old German lady started to cry. Hitler must have really snowed her under. And the Germans, I guess, were pretty well dislocated. They were walking up and down the roads in groups, and I guess if you went out there, you'd have got a shiv in you pretty quick. But we hung pretty close to this German house and didn't have much trouble. Anyway, we went in 2 or 3 days later, and I was in Moosburg. I heard where Roosevelt had died, and I'm pretty sure that's where it was where I heard that. And then they finally flew us into Le Havre. And, of course, at Le Havre, all the guys had loot, of course. They had German Lugers and silver and furs and every damn thing else had picked up, and it was really an inspection. We were told when the inspection was going to be. We took the stuff out and went out and got inspected and brought it back in, brought our duffel bag back in, and loaded up again. Anyway, they were feeding us 6 meals a day, and I could see the meat coming on my bones every time I took a shower, and I was starting to gain my weight back, and the other guys were too. So there's no use of dwelling in that. We finally we got fattened up a little bit and get on the boat and come back, and I think as far as I can remember, we landed in New York, and then they took a train down to Fort Dix, and then I finally got to call my wife and parents and tell them I was still alive there. So, and later we got a furlough. I believe we got some time off. I don't remember when, and then we were told to report down to Asheville, North Carolina for some R&R. When I get down to Asheville, which by the way was a fantastic place to have R&R. They had golf clubs, golf courses, and tennis courts. And we were staying in a beautiful hotel with all the amendments, and it was a fantastic place there. But I noticed there was lists going up on the board every day for going to Japan. The Japanese war hadn't ended as yet, and I thought, holy man, if they send me over to Japan, even though I have enough points, I'm not going to get out of this Army for another year. So I went into the payroll section. Was talking to this captain. I said, can you use a good man in here, Captain? And he said, well, let me check. And he checked my records. He said, well, you seem pretty well qualified. Can you still type? I said, I haven't touched a typewriter for 3 years now, Captain, but I'll give it my damnedest. So you only had to type 30 words a minute, and I still don't know whether I typed the 30 words a minute. He said, you passed after I finished. I think he just wanted to get me in there anyway. So anyway, I'm in the payroll section for another month or two, and come up November, why I had the points, and the captain said, well, write up your papers and send yourself up to Butner and get yourself discharged. So that's what I did. And of course I get home in November, and my brothers had already bought a business, and it started out as a sawmill and a lumber business. And I went to get home on a Friday and started to work with them on Monday morning. So that's about all I can think right now. I'll do some thinking here, and if I come up with anything else, there was some humorous incidents that happened. If I think of anything else, I'll come back with you.